I hope you're all having a great week. In fact, I hope you all are having a happy, very merry new year. I know I have been MIA for like ever. Nothing in particular happened. I'm fine. My kids and my family's all fine, and I hope you guys are too. I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves, not only physically, but mentally as well. I do want to go ahead and apologize. You might hear a little background noise. My fish tank, obviously I am in my bedroom. You might hear some birds whispering, maybe some kids shouting. I'm just trying to get it all done in one day. Anyways, before we jump into today's video, I also have a trigger warning for you guys. This case is pretty graphic. The pictures are disturbing and horrific. So for those of you that are super sensitive, this is your time to go ahead and click out. Hopefully I will see you next week in a new video. For the rest of you that's gonna stick around, let's just start from the very beginning. Charli Joanne Scott, otherwise known to family and friends as Charli, was born on November 24th, 1986 in Woodland, California, to parents Robert and Kimberlyn Scott. Now, because Charli goes by Charli in her everyday life, out of respect to her and for this video, I am going to refer to Charli as Charli. Well, Charli grew up in California, and although her parents did end up eventually separating, they were able to maintain civility towards one another. Now, Charli has several sisters, and by all accounts, Charli and her sisters and her mother are extremely close. They seem like a very loving, a very supportive family. 2004, Charli and her family, they decide to move to the island of Maui. Charli's older sister, Brooke Haley Scott, she's older by like a year and 10 months, started working at a local food store called Mana Foods, which is located in Paia. After about a year or so working here, Charli also became employed at Mana Foods. And in 2009, Charli begins a romantic relationship with Steven Capobianco, a boy 3 years younger than Charli, who also worked at Mana Foods as a baker. Charli and Steven's relationship get pretty serious, and they end up moving in together in a place located in Makawao for about 2 years. Friends of the couple said that in the beginning, Steven was very affectionate and loving towards Charli. But in the end, Steven would deny being in a relationship with Charli, often saying they were just roommates rather than partners. He didn't like taking pictures with Charli, and at times he wouldn't even acknowledge Charli. Charli, on the other hand, was very much head over heels in love with Steven, and she continued to love him even after they broke up, and even after she knew that Steven didn't feel the same way towards her. Friends say Charli adored Steven and catered to his every request, sometimes doing his laundry and also cooking for him. When the couple split up, Steven moved on and dated other women, but he would still see and sleep with Charli, even though he didn't want to get back together with Charli. Steven had 2 girlfriends after the relationship with Charli, and during one of those relationships, Steven finds out that his current girlfriend is cheating on him. So he decides to go to a local bar and get drunk. Now, while he's at this local bar, I don't know if he just ran into Charli or that he called her and told her to meet him there. Either way, Steven and Charli, they end up drinking together, they end up getting drunk together, one thing leads to another, and Steven ends up spending the night over at Charli's. A couple months after spending the night together, Charli learns that she is pregnant. Steven is not happy about the news and wants Charli to terminate the pregnancy. According to one of Steven's ex-girlfriends, she said that Steven hated kids and he wanted to make sure that if she ever got pregnant, that the pregnancy would be terminated. Steven tried very much to talk Charli into terminating the pregnancy, so much so that the two of them end up going to a Planned Parenthood to schedule an appointment. Once the appointment is set, Steven thinks this is a non-issue, the pregnancy is going to be taken care of, and his current girlfriend is never going to find out, he's going to go on living his life. On the other hand, Charli ends up thinking long and hard about the situation. And the more she thinks about it, the more she thinks that, she wants to keep the baby and she wants to be a mother. So in the end, Charli decides to keep the baby. In December of 2013, Charli ends up telling her family the good news that she's pregnant and that she is going to be a new mom. And Charli's family is happy for her. Although Charli's family didn't care for Steven because of the way he treated Charli, they were willing to accept him because he was the father of Charli's baby. Knowing that Steven wasn't going to be happy about this news and probably was going to be absent in the baby's life, Charli decides to co-parent the baby with two of her friends, her friend Adam Gaines and his wife, who unfortunately couldn't have children of their own. The throuple agreed to raise the baby together. In fact, Adam Gaines goes to Charli with her first baby ultrasound appointment. Charli was very happy and excited about this new journey. But one of Charli's sisters, Fiona, ends up texting Steven and asking him if he knew that Charli was pregnant. Steven ends up texting Fiona back with a text that read, quote, "I thought she had taken care of it," end quote. Fiona tells Steven that Charli decided to keep the baby and that Charli wants to be a mother. From there, Fiona claims that Steven was nervous and sounded panicky. Steven claims that this pregnancy and this baby would ruin the plans that he had with his current girlfriend and that this wasn't what was supposed to be happening because he and Charli had talked about terminating the pregnancy. On Sunday, February 9, 2014, Charli is at one of her sister's house in Haiku and leaves for home around 8 o'clock p.m. On Monday, February 10, 2014, Charli's mom, Kimberlyn, couldn't get in touch with Charli, which was very unusual. So being the caring and concerned, loving mother that she is, Kimberlyn decides to drive over to Charli's house and check on her. Now at this point, Charli is about 5 months pregnant. So Kimberlyn thought that, maybe Charli got into some trouble, maybe an accident happened and she couldn't get to a phone.
Over at Fader, kind of accusatory, like, "Where's her car?" It's like, "I don't know, Mom, I don't know."
The front door was locked. Then Kimberlyn noticed the window was cracked open and decided to break in.
It was really easy to open it and slid out enough to push Fader through. And
her sister climbed in through the window.
She climbed in through the window, opened the kitchen door for me.
Charli's dog was inside and agitated. For Kimberlyn, it was a sign that Charli hadn't been home for a long time.
She's left the dog for hours.
Well, the way it looked to me, it looked like it had been overnight.
It was as if Charli had disappeared into thin air. And it didn't take long to notice that her other dog, Nala, was also missing. The stillness of Charli's house only fueled Kimberlyn's fears.
Her bathroom was outside of the main house. And so we went out there and broke into that and looked in the bathroom because I thought, oh my God, what if she's hemorrhaging in the bathroom or something? Because we knew she wasn't in the main part of the house. And we looked there and there was just nothing. At that point, it was full-blown panic.
Because Steven Capobianco was the last person to see Charli, Kimberlyn calls Steven and asks him to come over to the house.
I said, I want Steven to stop here. I want him to write down this timeline. Like, I want to see him, look at him, and hear him tell me what happened.
Faced with a mom who would not back down, Steven showed up, and Kimberlyn insisted that he write down every detail he remembered from that night.
What are you asking?
Where did you guys go to? When did you see her last? That was the biggest one in my mind. When did you last look at her? He goes, I remember looking up and seeing her car in my rearview mirror. And I'm like, Steven, are you sure it was her car? And he goes, Kim, you're the one who got her the skeleton that lights up on the front of her car. And I remember looking at him going, don't talk to me like that. It was just out of context. With everybody so scared, he's being a smartass.
By now, Charli had been missing for 48 hours.
I just kept thinking, she needs help, and it's gonna be dark again, and everybody's gonna stop looking.
On Monday, February 10, 2014, around 10:45 p.m., Kimberlyn reports Charli missing. Initially, Kimberlyn let Steven take Zoe and one of Charli's dresses because it had Charli's scent on it. But the very next day, when Kimberlyn had her suspicions that Steven was involved with Charli's disappearance, she tells Steven to return Zoe immediately. Charli's family and close friends wasted no time in trying to find Charli. Rescue searches were organized, volunteers came out in support and pitched in wherever they were needed. Flyers were put up all over Maui. The news covered the searches and kept the community updated on these searches. And there was also a Facebook page set up and kept everyone updated in regards to finding Charli or anything that would lead them to Charli. Nala, Charli's other dog, was found on Monday, February 10, 2014, between 7 and 7:30 at Nahiku Marketplace by a man by the name of Albert Young while Albert was drinking his morning tea. Albert said he noticed that the dog would run out from under a vendor table every time a truck would pull up, and then he would run back under the table. Albert said that the dog looked lost, and so he wanted to find out if the dog was friendly or not. To Albert's surprise, he said that when he opened his truck tailgate, the dog immediately just jumped up. Albert went on to say that the dog was thirsty and ate some food, but that the dog didn't seem out of place or tired. Overall, Albert thought that the dog looked pretty healthy. Albert then drove around hoping to find the owner of the dog. He visited 2 different homes that had a similar looking dog, but found no luck in finding the owner. He visited a neighbor in Nahiku and a friend in Hana. While Albert was in Hana, he stopped by the store and he ended up running into a friend. So he's talking to this friend, he's telling the friend the whole story about the dog, and the friend decides to take a picture of the dog and post it on Facebook. In the meantime, Albert takes the dog home with him, and the next day he takes the dog to the beach with him. On Wednesday, February 12, 2014, around 1 o'clock in the morning, the friend that posted the picture of the dog on Facebook came down Albert's driveway and told Albert that the lost dog he had found belonged to the missing girl. Albert got up, jumped in his truck, and drove down to the Hana police station, where he ended up speaking to Officer Jason Thompson about the lost dog. While at the police station, Albert was able to connect with Charli's sister Fiona and make plans for Fiona to pick up the dog at Nahiku Marketplace. Fiona and Charli's friend Adam Games showed up to pick up the dog, and Albert says that he knew that the dog knew Fiona and Adam just by the way the dog reacted when seeing the 2 individuals. 24 hours after there was no sign of Charli, Charli's mom, Kimberlyn, decides to use the Life 360 app to try and track down Charli's last known location. Charli's phone pinged at Kaiaulanicases Peninsula, and this is somewhere Kimberlyn knew that her daughter would not be on her own volition at 10:56 p.m. on a Sunday, especially being 5 months pregnant. Because Charli's phone pinged in the Kaiaulanicases Peninsula, this is where the rescue search party would focus on. As family and friends began searching for Charli, some said Steven seemed to be steering them away from the dirt road off Hana Highway leading to Nua'ailua Bay. Charli's sisters, Brooke Scott and half-sister Phaedra Weiss, were driving from Kaiaulanicases Park toward Haiku in the late afternoon on February 11, 2014, when they saw Steven's headlights coming up the dirt road to the bay. Steven tells them he had already searched there before offering to drive the sisters down. They both said no. Later that night, as Steven and Adam Gaines drove to Kaiaulanicases to check on a tip that Charli's vehicle might be there, Adam said he pointed out the dirt road to Nua'ailua as a good place to search, but Steven said it wasn't necessary, that he had already searched it.
He said, "We found her car. We found her car." And I just remember he was crying when he said it. And I remember asking him, "Are you sure it's her car?" And he goes, "It's her license. It's hers. It's hers." He said, "It's burnt, it's ruined, it's destroyed." Her vehicle was very far from the cell phone ping.
And it was only about 10 miles from Charlie's home. The car was on its side, gutted and charred.
I just remember my throat closed and I couldn't really ask him much. It just literally felt like things went black.
On Thursday, February 13, 2014, Charlie's sister, Fiona, was searching in a brush area, found a black skirt with about 20 to 27 holes in what would be the abdomen area. A bra was also found and a maggot-infested blanket. These items were said to be the clothes that Charlie was wearing on the last day she was seen. Charlie's family took what they found straight down to the police department.
Phaedra Weiss, the younger sister of the victim, says she used a cell phone's GPS locator to track down her sister's last known location near Nua'ailua Bay, also known as Paraquats Beach. She and friends came upon a scene that suggested to her that her sister was no longer alive. Bridget Namata continues to cover this case on Maui and joins us live from there with more. Bridget.
Dash, Phaedra told the jury that her older sister Charlie was her everything. She needed to find her older sister alive. She told the jury she cried when she discovered one by one Charlie's personal items in a remote area off Hana Highway. Phaedra described that area as very remote, hard to walk through, overgrown grass, plenty of trees. She first noticed a Twilight movie DVD on the ground and recognized it was Charlie's. Then her friends discovered Charlie's blue tank top. Then a black skirt that Phaedra said was the last thing she saw Charlie wearing, except the skirt had holes in them. The three reached a river and found a green blanket belonging to Charlie caught in a tree, but also in the water. Phaedra says the blanket was covered in maggots.
There was a strong smell, like something had died.
While you folks were finding these items that you just described, at any time, if at all, did you try to ping your own phone?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe that for us?
As Max was going up the river, I had stepped into the river again, and Molly told me to stop because I was crying, so I decided the most helpful thing I could do was go onto the ping and screenshot my own location.
The three found more evidence: a gray hooded jacket, black pants that Phaedra did not recognize, and 2 empty rolls of tape discarded between rocks.
So the police decide to go out and do a search of their own. And what they find in and around this peninsula is truly horrific. Police end up finding 5 fingernails, 2 jawbone fragments, a tongue piercing with flesh still attached, skin fragments, clumps of red hair. After DNA and dental records were accessed, it was proven that all of these parts belonged to Charli Scott. It was undeniable evidence that Charli Scott was dismembered. But what happened to the rest of Charlie? The one person that could provide answers was Steven Capobianco, because he was the last person to see Charlie alive. Police decide to bring Steven in for questioning. And according to Steven, he claims that his truck had broken down out in Kaiaulanicases. So he called Charlie to ask her if she would be able to pick him up and give him a ride out to Kaiaulanicases. Steven claims that when he and Charlie got out to his truck, Charlie stayed in her truck while Steven went out to fix his truck. Steven claims it took him about 5 to 10 minutes to fix a loose battery cable on his truck. And after his truck was fixed, he claims that he left and Charlie was driving behind him in case his truck would give him any more problems. Steven claims Charlie was right behind him driving to Haiku, but that he had lost sight of her car headlights around the Twin Falls area. Steven said that he just assumed Charli would continue driving and that he would catch up with her later. Steven said that when he got home, he sent Charli a text that read, quote, "Thank you," end quote. And that Charli didn't respond, but he didn't think it was a big deal. He thought that maybe Charli was working or just too busy to reply back. Police end up arresting Steven on a separate burglary charge. Apparently, Steven wasn't involved in some kind of theft. Police will do this sometimes so that they have time to build their case. Police and investigators are actively talking to other people that can corroborate Steven's story, because obviously Charli isn't around to tell us what really happened. Investigators end up finding out is that the story that Steven is telling everyone does not add up. Investigators had retrieved cell phone transmission records that conflicted with Steven's accounts and also had forensic evidence tying Steven to the scene, with the evidence and witness statements not adding up to Steven's accounts. Steven was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and second-degree arson. Steven pleaded not guilty, and on July 27, 2016, the trial began. Now, you remember Steven's accounts on what happened the night Charli went missing, right? He said that his truck had broken down out in Kaiaulanicases and that he called Charli to ask her for a ride out to his truck, and that she stayed in her truck while he fixed his loose cable wire, and that when they left, he was driving in the front and she was in the back, just in case he had any more problems with his truck, and that he had lost sight of her car headlights around the Twin Falls area. And this is Steven's account. And Steven also said that he was home by 11 o'clock p.m. Now they take it to trial, and there's so many witnesses that can account for Steven's whereabouts the same night that Charli went missing. At about 6:15 a.m. on February 9, 2014, when Steven said his truck would have been broken down along the Hana Highway, Steven's grandfather said that Steven left their Haiku residence and drove to work in Steven's truck, a silver 1992 Toyota 4Runner. Surveillance video from a Bank of Hawaii ATM shows a 1990s model silver Toyota 4Runner, just like Steven's, passing the Paia branch of the bank on Baldwin Avenue at 6:41 a.m. The 4Runner was headed uphill in the direction of the employee parking lot at Mana Foods, where Steven clocked in for work at 6:53 a.m. Also, later that same day, Steven's friend, Kurt Kaiser, was told by Steven that his backpack was in Steven's unlocked truck in the Mana Foods parking lot. Now remember, Steven had told the police and everyone else that he was home by 11 o'clock p.m. that night. But Jennifer Taylor, a former co-worker at Mana Foods, testified that she saw Steven driving into Hana on Hana Highway between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. that night. She said she didn't see anyone else in the vehicle, and she also claimed Steven was driving a silver 4Runner that was, quote, nice compared to the 4Runner she had previously seen him driving. The trial lasted about 6 to 7 months and had about 75 witnesses and 450 pieces of evidence. Jurors were able to listen to an interview Steven had with a detective in which Steven constantly referred to Charli in the past tense, although it wasn't known at the time that Charli was deceased. Steven did not testify during the trial, and he showed no emotion and no remorse. When the court asked Steven if he wanted to address the court, Steven said one word, quote, nah, end quote. The most damning single piece of DNA evidence in this case was a strand of hair belonging to Steven Capobianco, found in the pocket of a pair of jeans stained with Charli Scott's blood. Unfortunately, this was never entered into evidence, and so the jury never knew about this because the results were not provided to the defense team in a timely manner. Luckily, though, there was so much other evidence that proved that Steven was involved for Charli's disappearance and murder. The jury began deliberating on December 1st after months and months of testimony. And on December 13, 2016, the jury came back deadlocked and could not reach a verdict. There was a concern about some jurors not being told about the communication before it was sent to the court. After clearing up some things, the jury decided to continue to deliberate. After taking a break in deliberations from December 21st to December 27, 2016, the jury reached a verdict on December 28, 2016. Steven Capobianco was found guilty of second-degree murder of Charli Scott and her unborn son, and second-degree arson. In March 2017, Circuit Judge Joseph Cardosa sentenced Steven to life in prison with the possibility of parole for murder, 40 years, plus 10 years for arson. Steven must serve a total of 50 years before he is eligible for parole. So Steven will probably be in his late 70s before he is even eligible for parole. Currently, Steven is serving out his time at the Saguaro Correctional Center, which is located in Arizona. Before we end this video, I want to talk a little bit about Charli Scott and remember her for who she was. Charli Scott stood at about 5'10", 5'11", weighed 160 pounds, with striking green eyes and beautiful red hair. Charli was compassionate and thoughtful, always going out of her way to make others feel special. She was always singing out loud and loved to cook, as cooking was one of the ways Charli expressed love for someone. Charli was devoted to her family and her friends and absolutely loved her two dogs, Nala and Zoe. She would experiment with different hair colors and pin-up style clothing and refer to herself as a unicorn. She often stuck her tongue out to show off her tongue piercing. Charli was loving with a big heart. She was the epitome of forgiveness. Wise beyond her years, Charli often gave people advice. At the time of her disappearance, Charli was happy and excited about becoming a new mom to a son that she had named Joshua Aiden. Alright guys, that's all I have for you on this case today. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Have you guys heard about this case? Do you think justice was served? Do you think Steven got enough time? Do you think he got too much time? What do you guys think? I am so curious to hear your thoughts and your opinions about this case. Now, before I go, I do want to make a comment about the cases I cover. Obviously, the cases I cover, the information comes from sources that are already published, right? I'm not going out there and getting any new information. Sometimes I know the information that are in newspapers and articles and delivered by the news are incorrect. If you ever come across any information in any of my videos that are incorrect, please feel free to go ahead and give me the correct information and also leave the source as to where you found the information. Also, guys, there's not enough time for me to cover every single detail about a case. I will always pick out the details that I feel are the most important. And especially with a case like this that went to trial, there's so much more information out there. But I do encourage you guys to go and research more about this case if you are interested. Alright guys, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!